guys, welcome back to another episode of the Dropping Down from the Rafters podcast here on Toned In Entertainment. Tonight, we have just an awesome show ready to go, and joining me tonight, once again, co-hosted with me is the one and only Julie Cutler. How you doing, Julie?
I'm back. I'm doing amazing now that I'm here. Thank you so much for welcoming me back with open arms, Tony. I know you and I in the past have had a lot of fun together doing a lot of these interviews. Hello, Mosh Pit Messiah.
Mosh Pit Messiah's already here in the house. Welcome, Mosh Pit.
Yes, we've had a lot of fun doing a lot of these interviews because with you being down in Florida and me being up here in the Northeast and both of us having crossed paths at various points in time, I feel like we've come across a lot of really top tier up and coming talent. And with that being said, I wanted to introduce today's guest, who is someone that I have had the pleasure of working with multiple times. Hailing from Wildwood, New Jersey, weighing in at 250 pounds, he is the Jersey Muscle Jack, Steve Gibki. Excuse me.
Great as always. Great as always. Love that segue too. Phenomenal, Julie.
Yes.
Phenomenal.
Thank you so much for joining us. I am super excited to have you on the show today because I feel like you have done so much in your career recently, and you've also done a lot of really interesting things outside of wrestling that I know you like to share on social media pretty frequently. And so, thank you, Cherry Bombs. When my voice isn't cracking, I hope it's one of the best. But I think we're going to have a lot of really good stuff to talk to you about today. And one thing that I actually wanted to kick off with is, aside from being a professional wrestler, I know that you have a thick background in bodybuilding and being a fitness competitor. And actually earlier today, I follow you on social media. I was looking at your social media and I saw you overhead press 115 pounds in each hand, which, just for reference, for anybody who's watching, that is 2 Julies and some change. So can you tell us maybe a little bit about your fitness background, sort of how you got into bodybuilding and how that sort of ties into your journey as a professional wrestler?
Yeah, sure. I love I love that happened this morning too. That like totally took me off guard because I was hitting shoulders and my coworker was like training his clients and I just asked him for the last set, could I just get a spot? And I like setting up the camera for like the last set sometimes just to kind of like see how the technique is and whatnot. And to be honest, I really didn't feel like it was that good of a set. And I was like, damn, usually I go heavier or I could get 10 by myself and I struggled. And then I'm like rewatching the footage and then I see the girls in the background and like their reactions. And I was like, all right, maybe it wasn't that bad of a set. That definitely made me feel like a lot better. So thank you. But yeah, like, so my background in fitness, I did amateur wrestling in high school. I also have a Taekwondo background too. I grew up doing karate. I got my first degree black belt. And then after, I want to say like, I was in karate for already about like 5 years. And then we're going into like 2006. And for me, like mixed martial arts and UFC was really like starting to take off. And then I was just like, oh, like, you know, and then amateur wrestling is like a big part of it. So then I got into, you know, amateur wrestling. And then, you know, I was always a fan of pro wrestling. And as that grew, I was like looking at the guys like, you know, John Cena, Batista, Brock Lesnar. And I'm like, oh, these are some big dudes, you know? And I'm just like, well, if you want, like, if I want to be up there with them, like I have to be able to look like them and like their size. So I was always like working out at my local YMCA. And one of the guys, like the older guys that I trained with there, he was a professional basketball player from Europe. And he had mentioned, he was just like, you know, like, listen, if you really want to take pro wrestling serious and put on that size, there's an old school bodybuilding gym like 20 minutes away, very famous, like very old school, like called Diamond Gym, you know, and that's where a lot of the pro wrestlers like used to train at too. So, you know, if you're serious about it, go there. So I went to Diamond Gym in 2014, so like 10 years ago, which is crazy to me. And I went in there and I said, whoa, okay, I got to find the time of day where it's like empty in here because there's some monsters in here. I was like so blown away. But then like I'm looking at the walls and they have like all the old bodybuilding pictures on the walls. And then I look in the wall and it's the owner, like the original owner of Diamond Gym, him and Ricky dragging the steamboat, shaking hands like right outside the gym. And I'm like, whoa. And then like I'm looking down again and then there's superstar Billy Graham, like a picture of him like working out here. And I go, well, okay. And then there's another picture of like the Legion of Doom like working out here, and I'm like, what's going on? And then there's a picture of Darren Young, like Fred Rosser, like like on the wall too. And I'm like, all right, well I'm in the right place, And I started training there, and I just became a sponge, for everything. And then I started it, and I did it for wrestling, and then just being there, and then in that atmosphere, you grow a love for bodybuilding and I'm training with bodybuilders too, and I'm just like, you know what, like I feel like I do have to get my feet wet with this too, and like I'm here so much, like I really should kind of like dive into it. And I did my first like 3 bodybuilding shows. Like my first one was in 2017. I did Physique, which is the one with the shorts and the bathing suit, and those were my first 3 shows were Physique. And I think my second one I got first, but there was nobody else in the class. So to me, it didn't really count. And
you still would have won anyways. Come on now.
I don't know. So that's the thing about bodybuilding. Like to say it now, it's like, yes, but like the way I was looking, like, my second and third show, like literally like you couldn't compare. And, I mean, you want to talk about, I'll tell you right now, I'll give anybody a heads up that's getting into bodybuilding. If there's one thing you're guaranteed to give yourself, it's body dysmorphia. And it will just never go away, right? If you're getting into bodybuilding to really compete, you're going to give yourself body dysmorphia. Like there's just no way around it. And I did the first 3 shows, and then COVID came around, and then we're coming back from COVID. And I mean, I am like, we're coming back, and I'm training hard, and I'm like, I'm even hungrier, and I'm ready to get after it. And my one training partner, Lukman IG Bulu, was going for his pro card at the Universe. And the Team Universe is one of the hardest national shows to do in the entire country. And we both had the same coach and trainer, Greg Peterman, and Greg. A lot of people call him Uncle G. And he's like a mythical figure at Diamond Gym. This is the guy with the hat and the hoodie over, and he's like 6'4", and he's wearing the same hoodie and sweats every day, and he's just like walking around, and you would look over and you really wouldn't think, you'd just be like, there's something about that guy. I don't know. There's something about that guy. And let me tell, like this guy can torture the toughest people you've ever seen in your life. And make that, I mean, I won't say crying, but make them sweat from their eyeballs like nobody else, And I remember just like, come back from COVID, and I want to say it was 2023, and Luke won the Universe and got his pro card. And it just inspired and motivated me so much to where I was like, you know what? I got one more show in me, and I can dedicate everything that I got, and I can like really go after it. And I feel like I can do something. And that, like, I got with them, and it was like 6 to 8 solid weeks of just hardcore training. And then we went to states, and then we got 2 first places and 1 second place, which, and then that's where it was like, okay, like not like, that's how I felt like now I was competing. My first 3 shows was me taking, like just testing out the water, dabbing your toes in it. And then that show, I like, now I understood what it was to compete in bodybuilding. And I feel like there's 2 huge, like, different avenues for that. So, but, and then, yeah, well, when you win and when you place first like that in states, you qualify for nationals. So I really went into that show. Like, I was like, you know what? I know if I give it my all, I can make a good showing. And I did. And like, that was good for me. And I qualified for nationals. And then I'm like looking at, all my training partners and everybody at Diamond. And then they're looking at me and they're like, well, you can't really waste the qualification, And I'm just like, Yeah. I know. So
See,
I'm just
that's
like,
the hard thing. Once you get in the mode of doing it, and then once you've been prepping for that long, it's like, well, I'm
right.
already on prep, so I might as well just like squeeze in another show.
Yeah, so the thing about it too was, I mean, and I love this about Greg and his mindset on training is he doesn't necessarily have the mindset of we're going to get in shape for the season and we're going to do a whole bunch of shows. He has the mindset of you're picking one show, you're sticking to that show, and we're going to get after it for that show, and you're going to train in secrecy. You're going to train undercover. When you start from prep to your show, you don't post anything about training. You don't post anything about how you look. You shut down your social media. And that's what I did going into. So it was a full on old school bodybuilding prep going into that. So like we let just the way they did in the 90s. You didn't let anybody, you wore a hoodie the entire time you trained. You didn't take that hoodie off or whatever. You didn't let anybody see how you looked. So when you showed up there the morning of the show and you took your hoodie off and everybody saw the way you looked and everybody goes, all right, well, who's taking second? And I
Mhm.
love that. But in today's age, that is so hard to do.
It
And
is.
I totally understand it because social media is such a business platform that especially when you train hard and me as a personal trainer too, I'm advertising myself, to other people out there. But for prep, I would never compete or do a bodybuilding show any way different than Greg taught me to go full. What did we call it last time? I had a really fun, I was like, it was like a Marine saying or something like that, where I was like, tomorrow we go 0 dark 30 or something where,
Yeah.
no more Instagram posts. You guys don't get any more gym stuff. And because that's how it was for the, then when we qualified for the national shows and then I like kind of was like looking at Greg and I'm like, so what do you think we do for a national show? Which one you think we're due? And he's like, oh, you're gonna do the universe. And I go, oh, okay. I like it. What he says goes,
Right.
And first ever national show. I mean, for Luke too. Like Luke was grinding for years, and Luke had done at least like 3 or 4 different national shows, and the universe is always like the hardest one, and he conquered it. And then me knowing, like, I'm like, this is like my first time going into a national show, and it's the hardest one. So I'm like, let's just go as hard as we can, And that was a rough prep. That prep burnt me out. It was 24 weeks long. It was that one was hard, and like to tie into wrestling, that prep for the universe was the first ever time where I had to take a break from wrestling. And like this August was 15 years since I started wrestling.
Oh wow.
Yeah, well, I started 14, so it was very young. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, but but in all my 15 years, I've never gone more. Even during COVID, because we were doing studio shows and there were drive-in shows. I never went more than a month without doing a show or working, And the closer we got to the universe, it's 2 leg days a week. You're doing legs on Tuesdays and you're doing legs on Saturdays. And when you're training legs at Diamond Gym with Greg Peterman, you are staring death in the face and hopefully you live to talk about it.
Yes.
Like it literally will suck your soul out of your body. They talk about you have to go somewhere, and you find out who you really are. And that's how it was on every single leg day. And people be like, well, Tuesday's the easier leg day. And even it still sucked.
Yeah.
It was still hard. Tuesdays. And by the time your legs are you hit legs with them on Tuesday. And then Friday night, okay, my legs are just kind of getting normal again.
Right.
And then you're doing them tomorrow.
Right.
And then you're doing them Saturday again. And then Saturday's the worst day of it all. And then I remember having a run-in at WrestlePro.
Okay.
And me and Falaba, we were really starting our rivalry. And I was doing a run-in. And I had done legs with Greg and Luke and everybody that morning. And I'm in the locker room and I'm just sitting down and I'm like, okay, like a run, we'll be fine. And I stood up And I didn't even, I like looked, and then I sat right back down, and Danny Moff was not too far away from me, and he looked over and he just like, he realized, he was like, "You okay?" And I'm like, "I did legs this morning at Diamond." And he goes,
Oh
"Oh."
no.
And then I was like, it went from a run into a walk-in,
Yeah.
you know. But like then that's when they told me, they were like, you have to. I want to say the universe was on July 1st, and this was probably right before May started, and they were like, you got to take at least like 8 weeks off of wrestling. There's no way you can do it. And it was hard. It was hard for me. And I think I got away. With like wrestling up until like 6 weeks out, I want to say. And then I like at 6 weeks out. And it was hard. It was hard too, because it's so funny. All my focus was on the universe. But I really I was going through like just autopilot with wrestling, but wrestling was never better. I was flying out to Corpus Christi for Gulf Coast Championship Wrestling. We were doing stuff in Chicago. We were about to do some stuff with Warrior Wrestling out there. WrestlePro was really taking off. Battlefield out in PA. So it was, I mean, like we were busy and we were rocking it and we were flying and everything like that. And then to go from that and then to have to be like, I have to take at least a month off. And I told all the promoters too. And I said, as soon as July 1st is over with, I am ready. I am ready. And everybody was cool. They, take your time, do whatever you got to do. And I was like really appreciative. And I really tried to like, chime it down to as least as time as possible. And then of course, after the show, you hit everybody back up. Hey, I'm ready to go. And then it's crickets. And then you're just like,
oh no.
That's wrestling. And you got to know it, out of sight, out of mind, and that's just how wrestling is. And a part of me knew that going in. And that's why I never really did that. I never took that time off, because you have to stay busy and
strike while the iron's hot. Exactly.
But that was something that, had to get done for the universe. And we got top 10, which was, which was great for the first show. Did the best we could, and I was proud of the showing. It was the best I ever looked. And after that I was more than satisfied. So, and then it was just like, all right, well, let's get back and then try to get these dates back for wrestling. So, and then it was right back to it.
One thing that you did mention that I also wanted to circle back to really quickly, because my personal trainer, she trained me not for a bodybuilding competition, but she trained me for the Miss Massachusetts USA pageant, which was a little bit easier in the sense that you're not necessarily trying to get as lean, but she also came from a bodybuilding background. And something that we've talked about multiple times is, looking on social media, and when you see other people doing their prep, it's really easy to get in your head and get in that space of self-comparison. So I think that the fact that you went about it in such a way where it was like tune out all of that outside noise, I think that that's really smart, to the point that you had made earlier about getting really in your head and maybe developing this kind of body dysmorphia when you're in that world and it's all about comparison.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll tell you right now, like during that stage too, when I looked my best, I did not appreciate it at all. I thought I looked terrible, It wasn't until several weeks after, or even months after, I look back at the pictures and I go, oh, I looked good.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, and then I can appreciate it a little bit. But when you're in it, the diet is so strict. Everything is so strict. Just the way your mindset is. And you know what? I don't mind it, because it does keep you humble. Which is great. And then your confidence rises at a level where I feel like it should, it just keeps you in check.
Now, you mentioned about, the leg days and almost being unable to walk, and other guys training that literally had tears coming out of their eyes. For you, was there any point where you thought to yourself, okay, I'm done with this?
Oh, like almost every workout, you know.
Okay. Wow.
I mean, it was like you would like there were just like days where like I'd be leaving the. You got to understand, like there's certain leg day. My first ever leg day at Diamond Gym was with the owner, Dwayne McDaniel, and I remember Dwayne did this thing where we got on the leg press and he loaded that sucker up and we probably got up to 8 to 10 plates on each side for the leg press and just went till failure, till you really couldn't push anymore. And like my legs went completely numb, everything's dizzy, and Dwayne took off every single plate. And he didn't rack them. He scattered them across the floor. And when he was done scattering them, all the 45-pound plates across the entire floor, he came back to me and he was like, all right, now go pick them up and rack them. And then he walked away.
Oof.
And I looked around, I go, there's 20 plates across the whole floor. I can't even stand up right now. But listen, that is the old school mindset, and that's where they're going to test you. And that's where it's going to separate you from everybody else, you know, because listen, you're going to pick the plates up and you're going to rack them, or are you just going to be like, you know what, I'm done with this, I'm leaving, you know. That and that's why I'm so appreciative of that place, and it has such a deep part in who I am and molded me as a trainer too, as a bodybuilder, as a person. So it's so crazy because like, and I'm talking about it too, I started 2014 and now it's 2024, so it's been 10 years there. And it's insane. It's like when I first started, I looked around and like there were all these giant dudes and like these big people and everything like that. And it's so crazy because like I see these new kids come in for guest pass or whatever, and now I'm that guy. And it still just kind of like blows my mind, you know. And like before, I would see the way these guys would train and work out, and I'm like, oh, that's intense. Like that's crazy. That is crazy. And now I am crazy.
You're that guy.
I'll do it by myself. Like I'm crazy, you know, and it's okay. But yeah, it's like now you look back at it because I'll you know, when I'm traveling on the road for wrestling and everything like that, and I'll do a day pass at another gym and I'll look around and I'm just like, oh, like this ain't Diamond.
Yeah, you don't want to come to my gym, Steve.
I've seen them all, you know, and that's the one thing is like, and if there's one thing like COVID taught me, it was like it's all about intensity and you creating the atmosphere around you, you know, because I can honestly go into a Planet Fitness and if I really needed to, I'll get in a killer workout. They might kick me out, but I'll still get in a killer workout.
You're going to violate their noise policy.
I'll tell you right now, I don't think that lunk alarm works at every single place.
Okay.
I've been there a couple times and like, not that I do stuff, but I see other people do stuff where it's like, there's like a lunk alarm and then there should be like a moron alarm. And like that more like, you know, I'm just like that moron alarm should go off every hour, you know, but so.
Oh man. Well, something else that you said that I want to circle back to, talking more wrestling and talking about how your fitness journey is sort of tied into your wrestling journey. Something that you mentioned was, you know, leading up to your competition, traveling all over the place, flying all over the place. You've been doing this for a long time since you were 14 years old. And I know recently we've had the chance to see you working for some major promotions, for example, TNA. I've seen you have some matches there in recent times. And so something that I wanted to ask you about that, if you're talking to other maybe people that are new in the indie wrestling business, people that are up and coming, they're younger than you, they haven't done this before, they haven't been on TV before, what sort of advice would you give them to sort of like help get people to that place?
Right. The first thing that was always drilled into our minds, and it's the most important thing I feel like in the business, is stay ready, don't get ready. You know, so if you have to get ready for an opportunity like that, then you just bottom line, you're not ready. Because like those opportunities like TNA or AEW or, you know, WWE, when they call you or if you show up, because you're not always guaranteed a match, you know, both of my, I've had 2 matches in TNA, and both times I've had them was from a 3 a.m. text from Tommy Dreamer. So just thankfully I'm awake, you know, when that happened. But both times I was just already ready. I had TV style gear. You know, my body was always in shape. You know, it just, I've done enough work to where I can go face or heel whenever. So when you're in an opportunity like that and you're just always ready, no matter what at their disposal, they're going to look at that because they know that then you take it seriously. So that's the number one biggest thing I would say.
Now, you talked about, you know, doing some work with the major promotions. How weird was it to perform, you know, in COVID as well, too, in front of, at these arenas, in front of like almost like nobody in the stands?
Yeah, I mean that was so weird. It's just like it like really made you realize how important a live audience is to pro wrestling. Because even like on TV for like Raw and SmackDown, like the Thunderdome, it doesn't feel the same at all, you know? And it was hard to watch. And they could have the best matches and best performances, but if it's not in front of a live audience that you can see like their actual reactions and you can feed off of that energy, it's so different. I mean, props to everybody that has went through that and still put on matches. And it's super frustrating too, because like during that time, I had some really banger matches. Like I had some really killer ones. Me and Casey Navarro had an I Quit match in front of nobody where he like busted me open twice. And it's one of the only times I've actually like fully been busted open in a match, and it was in front of nobody. So that was great. Like I could just only imagine if it was in front of people. I had another really hard hitting like Japanese style match with like Wrecking Ball Legursky. That was another like great match. You know, like that was a hard one because it was just like you're having these great matches. Thankfully, they're filmed,
Yes.
and you can look back and watch them. But then you look back and you watch them, and you're like, wow, imagine if that was in front of a live crowd, you know. But I'm happy that, especially on the independent scene right now, all smart promotions are filming their shows and getting them out there to people. And I understand everybody wants to stream and everybody like wants to make money off of the show. But listen, if it's not available for people to see, nobody's going to see it. So I think a lot of companies got caught up in trying to work out a deal with like, you know, like whether it's Fight Network, Fight TV, IWTV, whatever, right? Just make your stuff available on YouTube online so people can watch your promotion, so people can see your product, because that's what matters most. Because they're like me as a worker, and I said this to Ken Dixon at the last Rebel Spirit show too. I was like, dude, there's no better feeling than as soon as your match is done, you have the footage and you can watch it over. Because it feels one way when you're out there, but then you want to see how it looks.
Right. And I think also in kind of the business of what we're doing, I know it's a little bit different for me being like a ring announcer, interviewer, etc. But one thing that's the same is that having that footage for people like you and I, that's something for us to take and then send to someone like a Tommy Dreamer or people from a major promotion and
Bingo.
give them, number one, a vision of what you're capable of, but number two, also a vision that says, hey, like this is how I would look if I were on TV. I'm TV ready.
Yes, because production is like such a big element. It's one of the top 3 elements of it, you know. And there's nothing more frustrating, and when it's the opposite way, when you have a match and you have to wait weeks to see the footage, you know. I like, listen, like I'm going out there, like, you know, you're driving all these hours to like going there, going home, you're putting on this performance, you want to review your work, you want to see the performance. And the fact that I would have to wait like even more than a week to see the footage of my work, it just drives me insane. I mean, I like Fight Factory Wrestling too. We just had the War on the Shore show.
Yes, I saw that.
Within 72 hours, you had your pictures. Within the week, you had the footage. It was such a breath of fresh air. The promoting was done right. You know, Steve Sergio, Tommy Lee, Chris Payne, like those guys are a tremendous team. They care about production. It was such a breath of fresh air, and I had to give them a shout out, and I had to make a post about it because they like for such a long time, and especially like when I started, which is like 2009, up until 2018, 2019. You were doing all these shows. You were really lucky if you got the footage, because like you would have to get it yourself on like an iPad and have somebody holding and filming around, and that's not something you want to send. You know, like an iPad grainy footage of like one diagonal angle from the crowd. So it's like, you know, you do, and I talk to, you know, like veteran guys like Sean Donovan, Danny Moff, you know, about stuff like that. I'm like, geez, I can't imagine you guys having all these historic banger matches like back in the day and then not having the footage for it to even reminisce and look back at it. You know, like most of their stuff is, but like some of them, you know, especially like I want people to know I'm working. I want people to know I'm traveling and I'm hustling, because there were so many weekends where I was doing it and nobody knew, you know, and at this point in the game, like if you don't present yourself being busy, nobody's going to think you're busy. And then like if you are busy and nobody thinks you're busy, especially in this, you know, industry, it doesn't mean anything. So, you know, that is just so crucial. You know, I would say, like, especially any promoters out there, like watching, or if they see this footage or the replay, please make it imperative to film your shows and make them accessible to everybody. Don't worry about charging people. Don't worry about trying to make a buck. I understand it's important, but listen, you make it accessible first and you get enough eyes on it, then that part will be easy. So.
Now, Steve, you did mention one name and you said Casey Navarro. So I feel as a journalist, I have to hit you with this hard-hitting question. I need an answer. I need an honest answer. You beat Casey Navarro. You won. You got a check for $20,000. And the announcer said that you were going to spend it all on baby oil. Did you spend all that money on baby oil, Steve?
I didn't see a penny of that money, dude.
Oh, no.
I didn't see a penny of that money. That side-out tournament, I don't know who was in charge of that island or what was going on, you know. I mean, that was a great tournament, too. That was another one that was, like, in front of nobody. But imagine if that was in front of people. And me and Casey had another banger match on that one. And you got this big, nice check for $20,000. That was just a big, nice check that probably just didn't have anything, you know, behind it or whatever, you know. So
you want to know what I would love? At some point after this show, I'm going to go online and I'm going to do the math. I'm going to look up how much it is for a bottle of baby oil, and I'm going to try and figure out how many bottles or how much baby oil $20,000 can buy, and I will get back to you guys with that number.
Probably about $10,000. I mean, 10,000 bottles, right? Aren't they?
It's got to be up there.
Cheap, right?
You want to know something? I hate baby oil. I despise like wrestlers that used to use like my old tag team partner Tony Vincita. Like Tony loved baby oil at first, and then he switched over to hot stuff. And then I hate hot stuff too. Yeah, because hot stuff has the smell and everything. But like, I mean, it gets you like pumped before the match. But like, just the smell is just so, yeah, dude, baby oil, it sucks. It's so there's a reason they banned it up there too. You know, it's just like, it's all over the place. Like, just get a good sweat or spray yourself a little bit before, you know.
That was actually going to be my follow-up question, because I've seen a lot of interesting things backstage. I've seen the baby oil. I've seen people using like the Pam cooking spray.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that maybe you've seen that is unconventional?
That's all bodybuilding stuff too. Like, that's all like stuff like when when I was getting like shiner put over my tan, and then some coaches would use Pam spray, you know, to get a good shine off the tan. And for bodybuilding, I totally get it. It totally makes sense. And then for wrestling, I'm like, well, dude, we're going out there. Like, I'm gonna be sweating like almost immediately, so it's all gonna come off, you know. And I'm just, you know, like guys getting like ready for the mat, you know, like yeah, I see guys like, you know, slap themselves to try to wake themselves up, which is fine too. If I do have my gym bag with me, sometimes I do now. I have smelling salts, which like
Oh.
power lifters will use, you know, where it's like, you know, pneumonia, like, you know, you take a sniff and it just like jolts your senses. So like that's like one like I'll do every once in a while. Um, but it's weird, even to get a pump, like I'm not one of those people. Like maybe like before like, you know, a TV match, like I'll do some push-ups. I will definitely stretch, you know, like do some kicks, like just to like some squats just to get limber. But that's another thing that goes like, don't get ready, stay ready, because
Right.
like just a couple push-ups and some stretching, I'm good. This is how I look, you know. Like there's nothing like a couple reps with some dumbbells, and I know guys have the resistance bands, and like that's fine. It's for TV, so I totally get it. But for me, I always like my best performances are when I'm like calm and I go out there, and then it's like it's a burst of energy, and then I could use it, you know. So
That's smart. And one thing that I think this will be a good segue for, because we talked about your TNA experience, we talked about wrestling on TV and the importance of just being filmed in general. When you did get to TNA, was there anything about the way that they do things, the structure there, or even really in any major company that you've had experience like doing extra work for in
mhm.
any capacity, was there anything that maybe was really different or alarming to you, or anything that maybe you felt really stood out in comparison to your experience wrestling on the indies?
I mean, I've done extra work for the top three, you know. TNA's always been my favorite, only because like I guess like I know a lot of people there, and I've worked with, you know, some of the guys there, and I've honestly said, like, since even like right before COVID, I've always felt like TNA has had the best product and like that, like just like crisp roster. Like they have a great, like just like diverse roster, like all different flavors of ice cream of like whatever you need, like great characters. Their presentation is nice. I'm so happy they went back to their original name too. Um, and it's very professional, and then at the same time it's very mellow because everybody there is a professional. So when you have so many professionals there, it doesn't need to be over like micromanaged, because everybody is so good and skillful at their job, which is such a breath of fresh air, because then it calms you down too. But then you're like, oh, like I got to make sure, like the biggest thing is like I look like I belong. You know, make sure you look like you belong. And like every time I've been there, you know, I always second guess it in my mind, but everybody else there always compliments me and says like, you know, no, you look like you belong here. Like, you know, you should be here. And that always helps too. You know, doing extra work for AEW, it's the same thing. It's just on such a bigger scale because you're at bigger arenas. There's a lot more cooks in the kitchen, you know, a lot more production going on. Just like, well, another place too, like I've worked with over half the roster. You know, so that's another one where it's very calm. WWE has just been around for so long. Like that was one where it was you try not to overthink it, but you be as by the book and professional as you can. And the stories about catering are 100% legit, and they are not overbearing at all. WWE catering, like nothing beats it. Nothing at all beats it. Like Braun Strowman gets like his own steak made by whichever chef is at the arena, and will just come out and put it right next to him on his table as he's eating the other one. You know,
Wow.
so yeah, so it's just I like I mean I've been on the independents for so long. It's like like, I mean, and compared to other guys that have been like twice as long as I have, but a lot of people love the independents. I hate it. I'm like, it's just to the point where it's like, because when you taste that next level, you see how things are running. You're like, it's literally like the Wizard of Oz. You get there, everything is in color. You know, oh my gosh, like look at like you got munchkin people running around like they're like there's candy all over the trees, like that's a house made of bubble gum, you know, just amazing stuff. Like that tree just threw an apple at me, you know, it's like holy shit, like look at it up here. And then like just on the independence, it just depends on where you go and where you're at. It's the Wild West. There's not that much structure because it just depends on what you put into it, how serious you take it. And there are companies that do take it professional and are at that level. And that's where I try to work. And that's where I try to keep my time and keep my energy. And you can tell real quick, you know, and because for the longest time, it's like there's levels to this, and it's all who's going to take this serious and then who's not. You know, so
I know Julie asked you about, wrestlers asking you for advice. And now you said, at the gym, we're going to circle a little bit back to the training, that you see these younger guys coming in that you once were. So when young guys come in and ask you for bodybuilding advice or, training advice to get ready for a show, what is some of the feedback that maybe you give these guys? Because I feel like it's a very different mentality versus professional wrestling.
It's crazy because I get it all the time. I almost at every show. I know I'm gonna get like at least two people that ask me like, yeah, I've been working out and I hit the gym and I'm like, yep, here it is. Okay, here we go. And it depends on like what level you're starting at, and I try to tell them like just consistency, stay organized, stay disciplined, and get real comfortable with making yourself uncomfortable. Because if you're working out and you're doing a program and you're comfortable working out, your body has adjusted to what you're doing. Training in the gym is meant to make you uncomfortable. And the more uncomfortable you can make your body and push that muscle, the more results you're going to see. Because if you're just comfortable in the training program, if you're doing the same thing for more than 2 weeks straight, your body adjusts to it. You're not going to see any results, and it's a waste of time. Like every week, every workout, I'm doing something different. I'm implementing at least one different thing to shock your body. So like that's what I tell them. I'm like, you got to do something to shock your body. And then when Will Hobbs asked me a question like one time at WrestlePro, and I was like looking around. I'm like, you're talking to me? I'm like, no. And I'm like, this guy, and I'm like,
he's a big guy too.
But you know what he did too? He put in the work, and you saw his transformation too, which I gave him so many pride. He was like, "You look great, bro. Like you look like a beast." I'm like, oh, "Look at you." I'm like, oh, you're AEW, and I'm just like, and when you started, like you had the size, but the definition, the conditioning, the hardness wasn't there yet. I look back like 2-3 months like later, and this guy had a traumatic like transformation. I love seeing that because you cannot fake that. That shows you dedication, that shows you discipline, and it shows you passion, right? And that's you taking your passion seriously. Because there's so many people. I understand every fan of wrestling has a passion for it. You have to. This is an industry you have to have a passion for, or else you're not into it and you won't do it, right? But what are you going to do with that passion, right? Will you do whatever it takes? Because if you will, then you'll look like Will Hobbs. You'll have that transformation that Will Hobbs had. He got that opportunity. He got put on that stage and he was like, I'm going to be Powerhouse Hobbs. And then boom, I look at him now. I'm like, dude, you are Powerhouse Hobbs 2.0.
Yes.
So, but that's just a great example of it.
And something else that I kind of wanted to use this as a nice little segue for, something that you mentioned was passion. We've talked a lot about your passion for fitness, bodybuilding, that world. Obviously, we've talked about your passion for wrestling. One thing that we haven't touched on yet that I think is so interesting about you is your passion for horror movies. And for those of you who have followed your career, they know that you also have a dark side, an alter ego, Dark STG. And so something that I was interested in, because I actually saw you perform as Dark STG first before I ever saw you as the Jersey Muscle Jock Steve Gibki. So I was kind of curious as to, when you started wrestling, you started at age 14 on this journey. When did you sort of get that creative inspiration to pull from your horror background, and how did that all come together for you?
Oh man, the origin of it is like so cool because I was just thinking about it the other day because somebody else was asking me about it, and it's crazy because we were running a, a show out of our old karate school back in like 2011 2012 when we were real young and we all just got into it. Me, my tag partner Tony Vincita, our other friend like Alex Winters, and it wasn't, we didn't have the best wrestlers, right? Because it was our inner circle, but we took production seriously. We had lights, we had a whole Titron, like a projector. So, Alex would make these phenomenal intro videos, storyline videos, and everything like that. And then when we were going into that, it was like, okay, like we have an inner circle. We have to make the most out of the guys that we know can wrestle. And it was like, that was like, like me, Tony, Alex, our one buddy, Adam Lockwood too. So I was like, well, we need a big bad guy. We need like a really evil, like big bad guy. And then back then I was STG, but I was known as Swag STG.
Okay.
So I had like the sunglasses on.
Very 2012 of you.
Yeah, extremely 2012 because that was what was catchy. Everybody was saying, yep, I got swag.
I remember.
Swagger Jagger, and all this stuff. So I was like, I've shown Swag STG. Like, let me let me pull out. I mean, I could be Dark STG, and like where the origin like came from was like I was like, I just want a dark side, I want to like kind of like have like that goth look if I do like really like deep eyeshadow and whatnot like around the eyes. So my aunt, like Tony's mom, like I remember we had like the one show and like last minute like I kind of like went in her like makeup kit and I just took her eyeshadow and I just put like a ton of eyeshadow like a lot around my eyes, and like that was like the first time like we really like did it. And they were like, no, the persona is cool, like you could feel like there's like something there, and then we had our big karate world show coming up, and it was me versus Tony Vincita in a last man standing match. And then of course me and Tony, we had to work twice, because we were low on wrestlers. So I did like a masked wrestler, the match before, and I had like a little bit of time to get ready for like the main event. And I remember like going back there and I was like, I really want to surprise him, because like nobody's gonna know this. And what I did was I went to the store, I got like paint, and this was like 2011, right? So it was a couple years after The Dark Knight came out, and there was something about Heath Ledger's Joker character that I loved, like the grittiness of it, and like what it was. So like I was sweating bullets and I went backstage real quickly and like I put like white all over my face, and then like I pretty much did the Joker but in black and white. And then of course it looks like the Crow a little bit, wasn't trying to copy Sting, but I am a fan of the Crow too. I don't know how the remake's gonna do, but anyway. And then I came out with the hoodie over and everything like that, and I raised the hand, and then the lights hit, and then I took the hoodie off, and then like like Tony's looking at me and we're doing this stare down, and he had no idea I was going to do the face paint. And then under his like lips, he goes, "Oh, that's really badass." And like, I'm sweating already and it's like all melted, but like, it was just so, that was like so iconic. And I was like, okay, like I was able to do that when I was like all sweaty, like imagine what I can do, if I have time to do it. So I would do it like one time a year for our Karate World show, because it was like a special thing to me. And then the closer we got to COVID and whatnot, and when we were coming out of COVID, um, I was just getting bored, and I was just getting like run down, and I felt like the Jersey Muscle Jock, whether it had an identity or any, because it was me with the volume turned up, but character wise, I always feel like I have an identity crisis, honestly, when I'm doing like the Jersey Muscle Jock. Like it's gonna sound weird. I feel so much more comfortable wrestling as Dark STG than I do as myself. Getting ready is a different story, right? Getting ready is a breath of fresh air when I'm just me. But
A lot less preparation.
a lot less preparation. But then it was like a couple people were like, "Yo, you should do Dark STG. Like, just go for it." And I was worried because I did it once a year for our Karate World show, but that was different. That was special. That was nobody saw it in like the limelight, right? And I was also worried too. Well, because like back then when I started it, I was a lot smaller, right? And it's supposed to be viewed as a monster and a demon. And I was just like, okay, well, I have a little bit more of the size now. So, a big thing is like, oh, why can't so and so just put on the face paint and be Dark STG? I'm like, well, is so and so like 6 foot and 260 pounds of just muscle? So now I had that going too. So I was like, you know what? Let's do it. Let's go with it. But before I did it, let me tell you, I did like 6 months where I just kind of like sat, researched, looked at all my favorite horror stuff and elements to create the origin and to create, because like I wanted this to be, when you really dive into the character, I want there to be lore that connects. And like a really big person that like helped me out with this was like Malachi Black. I wouldn't say he's a good friend of mine, but I've talked to him a couple times. We've worked out together. And he is real, like, I mean, his intelligence for wrestling, character, things connecting is on a whole different level. Like I thought, I was like, yeah, I've been around, like I know like certain, I was like, no, this is different. This is different. And I started bonding with him like once he had started his AEW stuff. So I did 6 months where I did a deep dive, and I was like, okay, what scares me? Like what am I worried about? Like how would this character actually present it as a horror character? And I always thought like, the top 3 scariest movies I've ever seen. I mean, Tony, like right off the bat, give me your top 3 scariest movies you've ever seen.
Oh, it's definitely, I think Scream was scared the shit out of me the first time I saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Nightmare on Elm Street when I was younger, obviously, was terrifying. And just Halloween with the music, it's so scary. I'm scared of more like it could happen, right? Versus like the demon. Oh, well, Nightmare on Elm Street, I guess, is maybe a little bit out there, but like Michael Myers or Ghostface, like people are crazy out there, and that shit could happen. So for me, that's the 3 that come to mind that sent chills down my spine the first time I watched those movies.
Right, the iconic slashers, right?
Right, yeah.
And that's what I wanted to build Dark STG up to be. I wanted to build him to be a horror icon. To me, it was like the foundation was set by like the Universal monsters, like the Wolfman, Frankenstein, Dracula. Those are just iconic monsters that will stick around forever. But like when you get into the lore, like how does the lore give you chills? And for me, my top 3 that scared the shit out of me is The Conjuring, the first one, Sinister, the first one, and the first Insidious. All those movies, because when it comes to the supernatural and spirituality, and there's just so much evidence on it, and it's just like you just don't know, right? And it is that idea, like you said, of the unknown that like just kind of like gives you like a little bit of a chill, right? Because like spirits are something you can't control, but like it's out there. And for you to believe in God, you have to believe in the devil. It's, you don't just get one. There is, where there is good, there is evil. And then another thing, and then this is when I did like a really deep dive, and like real quick, what is one of the top 10 most guarded places in the entire world? It is the Vatican, right? And the Vatican City is huge. And then underneath the Vatican City, below it, is the Vatican archives. It's their library that has the most historic documents, books, like stuff that we have no idea about. And it's one of the top 10 most guarded places in the world. And they say it is 53 miles long, right? In total. And this is just stuff that was blowing my mind. And I was just like, and supposedly the reason why it is so guarded is because they have cursed objects and books down in the Vatican, right? Like the Necronomicon from the Evil Dead, right? The Book of the Dead. That book is real. That book is supposedly real, and there are spells in there, and there's certain stuff, and it's locked away in the Vatican and it's protected. And I thought to myself, I go, this is all real stuff. Imagine if someone got their hands on one of these books, right? That is cursed, that is possessed, or like the Necronomicon, right? Or one of these books by itself made its way out of the archives and just went missing, right? And then what would that create? Like a physical presence or a possession. And then that's how I was able to kind of come up with the Dark STG story. Was you had Undertaker, who had the urn, and he gained his power from the urn, and then Dark STG has the book, and then Dark STG gains his power from the book. And like, we've always tried to like put good cinematic videos together to where it explains it, like, so.
I was going to say that was something that I had talked to you about a little bit at a previous show. I love the idea, because I like to do this myself when I'm thinking of like new wrestling related concepts. The idea that everything has a meaning behind it and everything has layers and there's tie-ins, right?
Yes.
And so something that I noticed was how well put together your video packages are. And I remember one of the more recent ones I saw, I think we were talking backstage, and you had mentioned you had done, I don't know if you had done all of the work on it yourself or a lot of the work on it yourself, but I was very impressed that you had that ability as well. And I was kind of curious to see, like, when you're putting together the video packages, like, are you kind of doing the same creative process where you're like pulling inspiration from different places or different locations in the world, or maybe different like video footage that you've seen before? Where do you pull all of that from?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. My one buddy, David, he helps out. He has the professional camera. He has a really top-notch editing system. He's done documentaries for Santana, for House of Glory, for MLW, for KC. He does a lot of top-notch work. So I want to say like my best videos are always from David. And then the other stuff, the smaller promos, are all stuff that I've done. But it's stuff that, like, I mean, I'll just wind up seeing and I'll be like, that looks cool. Like I have to do a little homage, or like if I like the Blair Witch Project, like I did a Blair Witch Project type like Dark STG promo the one time. Certain music, like I'll go see Dune and I'll hear the soundtrack and I'm like, oh my gosh, I could imagine if I implemented this in like a Dark STG video. So it's pulling from like pop culture stuff that you see that connects with you, and then you try to take it, put your own little twist to it. So that's just mostly how those ideas come.
I know you guys on your Instagram, you do a lot of horror movie stuff now. You have a separate Instagram in addition to your main Instagram where you guys are talking about horror movie stuff. And one of the ones that I recently saw was you guys were talking about, the possible rumors of a Nightmare on Elm Street TV show, because we did see stuff that has come out. Some didn't work. Like, I love Scream, but like the TV show was not interesting to me. Yeah. But then they did like an I Know What You Did Last Summer, which I love the first two movies, and the show was very different and interesting.
Forget about the Chucky show.
The Chucky show was awesome. Yes, the Child's Play was really good. But you guys did mention a Nightmare on Elm Street where DJ Qualls was rumored to, maybe stars Freddy Krueger. Do you think something like a Nightmare on Elm Street like TV series could actually work?
I especially right now, because nobody's coming up with original ideas, so, and then it was like I'll say the success of the first two Blumhouse Halloweens. So Halloween's and then Halloween Kills. I really don't want to talk about Halloween Ends. But like those were well done and presented, Michael Myers. It paid homage to the original, and then it had your new kind of spin on it as well. I think a Nightmare on Elm Street like series could absolutely work if done right. The casting has to be spot on because that's like one of those he's one of those characters where he's literally like Wolverine, like what they just did Deadpool and Wolverine, and it's 2024. We still got Hugh Jackman 24 years later, So if you're gonna try to replace Robert Englund, you got to find somebody that could fill those shoes. And the best part about Wes Craven and what he did with Nightmare on Elm Street was he pulled from reality. He read about people having nightmares and dying in their sleep, and then he put it out there, and it stuck and scared the shit out of people. I mean, I think it could work. I know that they were trying to develop the Camp Crystal Lake prequel series right now for Peacock. I don't know if that's dead in the water right now. The most recent horror news that I heard the other day was that James Wan is heading the Creature of the Black Lagoon remake.
I did see that video that you posted about that. That was like it's been like almost 100 years or something like that, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or 80 years.
So I sent the other Steve, the news, and then he's a wrestler too. He's wrestling down in Florida. You might see him at CCW when you go. I know he's reached out to them, but he's killing it on the wrestling scene now too. I sent him the news of that. And then I was going to do the video. And then, of course, he jumps at it. He does the video. So I'll do something that he likes just to piss him off. But like, and then he does the video. He's like, yeah, it's been 100 years, like since 1954, since Creature of the Black. I'm like, dude, do you not remember Shape of Water? That they did Shape of Water. And then he was like, that wasn't Universal. And I was like, true. But still, so he got me there. But I know, the director's name that did Shape of Water too, Del Toro, Guillermo Del Toro, is his name. He actually just finished filming his remake of Frankenstein, which I think is going to be interesting. I trust him with whatever he does. He casted Christian Bale as the monster. Interesting. I saw some behind the scenes shots and footage of it, so we'll see how it goes. I just think that there's so many layers to those Universal monsters that can be done that would just blow up. So
I think we're stuck right now in a creative, I don't know what the right word is, but just like a rut because these big studios, I think, are so afraid to invest all this money. I mean, I love Borderlands. I'm a huge Borderlands video game guy, and the movie came out and the casting was just not what I wanted to see in the movie. And from all the reviews, it was a disaster. And it's like, they're so worried about like filling, I mean, Hollywood's always had this problem with putting just names into these movies and not worrying about the plot or the theme or the overall production of it.
How do you screw up video game movies or series? Right?
There's plenty of them we could talk about.
Yeah, I know.
A whole separate podcast.
Almost everything. Now, a good friend of mine, Kevin Matthews, he's a wrestler as well. And he does stunt acting too. He was one of the stunt actors in Fallout. Okay. And Fallout did amazing because they stayed true to the video game, and they scored great with Rotten Tomatoes. They're getting a season 2, phenomenal. Everything was great, right? And then it's like you see Paramount do the Halo, series. And I grew up on Halo.
Right.
I've been begging for this like since 2002. And I'm like, please don't screw this up. And I start watching it, and I'm like, this is great. This is great, right? I saw the previews for it. This is great. And then the first action scene is happening, and I'm like, thank you. So is that an AK-47? What's going on?
Oh no.
I was what? How? It just passion, right? Passion. If you have a passion for it and you deliver on that passion the right way, nothing but success will happen, right? But when you're just worried about the money and you don't have a passion for it, because anybody that had a passion for Halo would have seen it be like there's no AK-47s.
There is not. It's all sci-fi and interesting, like the coolest weapons. Yes.
It was within the first 20 minutes of the first episode, and I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So.
There's a question here, maybe to circle back to the Vatican. I'm not going to say the first name because we might get demonetized, but Germany occupy Rome. Why didn't they take over the Vatican? Did the aliens have control of the Vatican?
Dude, but this is the deep dives, man. Like those are questions. Those are questions. It's so crazy when you hear about some of the supposed documents that are in the Vatican, right? Because that's a good point, right? Because Germany was in control of them during that time. So it's like, okay, like then who was in, like, you know, who had access down there? And plus, like aliens in control of the Vatican, they're said to be documents of, like, you know, evidence of like UFOs and whatnot, and actual, you know, contact made with them that are down there. I looked up, like, if you want access to anything in the Vatican, there's a process you have to go through. And the first rule, if you want access down there, you have to be 75 years old or higher. That's number one, right? You got to be 75 years old. Number two, you have to ask for specifically what you want. How do you know what's down there in the first place? So that's two. And then number three is you have to get it approved by, you know, the Pope and the whole system and everything like that. So that's like, dude, like, what's that? Like what? Why so crazy? 75. By the time you get to 75, you still care? You still give it to them? You know? Like at that point. So
that's a great point. And honestly, I feel like there's so much now that we're talking about aliens and all these different things. There's
I was going to say, we're about to go down another rabbit hole here. I hope everybody's laptops are charged right now.
Oh, another rabbit hole. I feel like we're going to have a separate conversation about this at some point offline. One thing that I did want to circle back to while we're kind of still on the subject of horror. Personally, I don't have the horror movie knowledge that you and Tony both have. I have a little knowledge here and there. And I think at one point we had talked about some of the movies that I grew up on were like the old Vincent Price horror movies. Tony, I don't know what your level of familiarity is with those, but I had like a whole DVD set that was just all I probably still have it somewhere. I have to dig it out. All Vincent Price. And my favorite one, the one that I like went through an infatuation with as a child, was House on Haunted Hill.
Oh, so close.
What were you thinking?
Yes, because that's House on Haunted Hill is a classic, and it's like one of his, like, that's what made him, you know, like,
I went through a whole infatuation with that as a child. So when I think of horror movies, I feel like I don't necessarily think of a lot of like the super gory stuff, but like, even though, you know, this was way back when, and maybe the special effects and things like weren't what they are today.
No, that's what made it better.
It was the simplicity. It was just
what made it better. During those Vincent Price years, there was a gothic atmosphere that he put in the air. And the reason why Vincent Price, he literally was the face of horror through the 60s and 70s. Like it was at the movie I thought you were going to say was because Vincent Price they went through all of Edgar Allan Poe's stories. Yeah. And they had Vincent Price he did Masquerade of the Red Mask. You know, like, I thought you were going to say Fall of the House of Usher.
Oh, okay. I'll have to see if I have that one. I might.
I did a little review on the horror page of that too, because when they were announcing on Netflix that they were doing a series, that the person, I think it was Mike Flanagan, that did The Haunting of Hill House, was going to do the Fall of the House of Usher. I said, that's going to be good. There's no way that's going to be bad. Right. And that series was so freaking good. Oh. It was because it took all of Edgar Allan Poe's stories and they made them per episode, and they had them all combined. And there were jump scares in there. And it wasn't even like a jump scare because they set it up so well that, like, this came out a year ago, I want to say. And it literally made me jump. And to make me jump now at this point, like after like searching the Vatican and doing dark STG and like this is what I fall asleep to on the wall behind me.
That's so pleasant.
It just calms me. I don't know. I'm crazy. But like when I saw that shit, I was like, oh my God. Like I got chills thinking about it. But that's one that you have to watch. It's on Netflix too.
I want to touch on the alien thing real quick. Oh no. Go ahead, Jolie. Go ahead.
I had one other quick question that I was thinking of for the both of you. Have either of you ever spent any time in Salem, Massachusetts?
That's on the list.
Because I haven't been to Massachusetts, so no, I have not.
I feel like you would love it. And I don't know if it's still open or not, so don't quote me on this because this was years ago when I went. But they have a lot of different wax museums in Salem. And I remember they had a wax museum that was completely dedicated to horror movies. It was like you followed a red carpet through the museum and they had all these like classic horror movie characters with a great surprise at the end that I won't spoil.
That's okay. That's good. I definitely Salem goes all out for Halloween, for spooky season. Just the history there too. Like, oh
yeah, I mean, you could feel. I've spent quite a bit. Again, this might be a conversation that we have to take offline at some point. But I spent quite a bit of time there, and certain locations you can just like. It's like that gothic atmosphere that you mentioned. Vincent Price created. It's like you can feel it in the atmosphere. You can.
Well, because you're there at the witch trials, like that happened, and you're walking on the ground where that happened, and I'm just like, well, thank God this isn't still around, because if anybody sees me with face paint, I'm going up there.
I want to circle back to the alien stuff because my wife and I are huge alien and we're huge supernatural people. We love to take ghost tours, like whenever we visit. Even for like Mania Week, we were up there. We still did a ghost tour in Philadelphia while we were up there. But we're huge into aliens as well, too. So we've actually gone to Roswell. There was only one tour ever given. It happened to be the year that we went, where they took you to the crash site on a school bus like crazy, like an hour away from Roswell to where supposedly the UFO crashed down. Right. We've also been to Roswell. We've been to the Skinwalker Ranch in Utah. Not actually on the Skinwalker Ranch, but as close as you can legally get to see Skinwalker Ranch. So have you had any kind of like, alien trips or alien experiences or anything kind of out of this world? Or is there any place that you would love to visit that maybe you think has been built by aliens? Because I also visited Machu Picchu and I'm like, there's no way the humans built this thing.
Dude, it's just there's so many. When you think about the history of the world too, and and you just like try to like dissect, like you're looking at the pyramids like in Egypt, and like structurally, and like when you like start to deep dive and like go into the rabbit hole, that's why your mind just, there's no way, it's impossible. It's literally impossible. Like, dude, like get out of here, like I always thought, what was it? Stone Temple, or oh man, with the giant stones that are
Stonehenge. Is it
Stonehenge? Yes, yeah, that's the one. Because that's one of like the great mysteries of the world too. Like that one always like tripped me out, just like trying to see, because the size of those, and then to be in that style, in that circuit. Who's lifting those back then?
Nobody.
Right.
You want to tell
we don't have all these Steve Gibkis back then to lift them.
You want to tell me like 200 like Steve Gibkis back then got together without Diamond Jim, and we're like, let's put the stones like this in a circle, and then that way we can communicate with everybody up there, and we could all do Morse code on the stones together. Like there's just no way. I mean, Area 51 like always like is like the top one, but you just can't get close. Like, I mean, at least now they're out in the open. They're like, well, yeah, it exists. I'm like, well, thanks. That only took until 2013.
Right.
And then everybody wanted to Naruto run right into it. Like, yeah, okay. So now we finally know that's gonna, go with alien technology. It had to be,
right. Why do stuff,
dude? There's no way. Like back then, with that kind of technology, for those stones to be in like that type of way, like maybe you're right. Maybe it was just people's idea to see how good their Wi-Fi was out there.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
definitely out there. It definitely, I love watching stuff like Ancient Aliens and just like going down and just letting your mind run free and just your imagination of like,
Their theories aren't that crazy. That's
no, they're not.
that's
I
what's
don't.
crazy.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
I feel like I've seen some really convincing A&E documentaries. I'll have to like circle back and find them online. But I remember watching one years ago that was like a collection of people recounting their experiences with alien life, and it's like everyone around them saying like you're crazy, and it's like, well, then how did this happen? Give me a logical explanation as to how XYZ happened.
I mean,
So I'll have to.
yeah, they confirmed that like they have UFO files. They released a couple and everything like that, and people are like, oh yeah, aliens. Like, dude, yes, but like if you think about it for more than like 5 minutes, like you will go crazy because you're like, oh, what? Oh, we're just okay with this, like, you know. And so
Yeah.
that's the wild and just like scary thing where it's just like it's all been confirmed at this point. There's so much evidence, and it's just like if you're still a denier, you know, just like I don't know. At that point, if you're still a denier, you know, just go spend the day at Chuck E. Cheese or something. I don't know.
You know what? I think that this could be the birth of something really great, because right now we have the Jersey Muscle Jock, we have Dark STG. I feel like the next time I see you, you're gonna come out dressed as an alien.
Probably, if I get probed, I'll tell you. I mean, that's it. You know, like they know more than I do. So if they can probe me, like just do what do whatever you got to do to just make me more advanced. You know.
So
Well, you're
one thing
definitely ready to
that,
take one for the team then.
yeah, one
For
thing that
humanity.
I wanted to circle back to, just to kind of come back to wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
is obviously we've talked about your years of experience, and you've mentioned traveling a lot of different places. You mentioned some of the other promotions that you've worked for. Obviously every indie wrestler, it's like for most people your main goal is to eventually get signed to a major promotion. But aside from that, from a creative standpoint, is there anything that's on your bucket list that you want to do, any promotions that you want to work for, or maybe anyone that you haven't stepped toe to toe with yet that you'd like to use this opportunity to call out?
Oh, ooh, look at her. She's looking for the spicy stuff.
That's what I do.
Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind on my bucket list is Japan. I feel like Dark STG would have a field day in Japan. And that I feel like that's just the stars all aligning, and just that's one thing where, if that opportunity ever presented, I'm ready. I'm ready. I just, it's just hoping that the opportunity would present itself, and then boom, we could take off. Aside from Japan, travel wise, because I've done international before. Um, there's no other place like internationally that I would really like strive to go besides Japan. There are some people that I know I have to work, and I just because I'm at the point where I really just want to tell good stories with, because that's what gets remembered, and especially like now, since like everything is being filmed and you can look back on it, like the stories are what's going to like really matter. We're in a really good program right now at WrestlePro with Sent to Slaughter. So like me and Fala are, and I've worked Sean Donovan a lot of times before, and I always have a killer match with him. Me and Dan Moff, it's just a matter of time. That's one where there's chemistry there, there's intensity there, and there's something in the atmosphere where the Last Shotgun Thursday night, which have been on a roll lately, that's been some of the best wrestling shows that I've seen in a long time. It's like New Jersey finally has like a good little niche that's monthly running and like telling great stories. That tag team match started off, and it was like Moff and Dark STG, and I shit you not, there was a fight forever chant before anything even happened. And then you can just kind of feel it. And there was like a picture of the stare down where you can feel the intensity in the picture, and you're like, well, this is freaking awesome. So that one is like up there, on the top of the list. Those are the first two things that come to my mind is Japan, and like telling that great story with Dan Moff, you know. Like I'm sure like there's a lot of potential out there to be worked and to be done. You know, I just know at this point I understand what I bring to the table, and my time and my energy is super valuable, and I will make the most of it no matter who I'm with. You know, because it's part of building your legacy, and you want to leave behind the best legacy and the best matches that you can. So I'm sure if more people pop up, you know, like it's going to happen. But those are the first two that I would say really just pop into my mind right now.
I think I have one final question. And since we've talked about wrestling, we've talked about horror movies and pop culture. Have you ever thought about doing cosplay wrestling? And if you haven't, what character would you like to cosplay as in the ring?
So I've seen that one company that does that. And it is really cool. You know,
it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. Yeah. See a Wolverine fight like Super Mario or something in the ring is out of control. It's
right?
Just a lot of fun. Yeah.
That's something for I love to watch, you know. Cause like wrestling for me, I couldn't wrestle as somebody else. It would just be weird. Like I would definitely do like a homage or like a tribute. Like I've had certain gear made where like I do like a certain tribute where I've had Terminator gear made. I've had Predator gear made, you know, like stuff like that. But if I could cosplay as somebody, like especially like because you always think of like Marvel or something like as the first one. I mean, you know, or even like in horror, like because I feel like I should cosplay in horror, you know, like Michael Myers would be just be so dope, you know. But then that's literally just the whole that's Undertaker's whole presence.
It really is.
If you just like look at how he got the idea for everything like that, he was like, well, you know, I just watched Halloween, and you watch Halloween, you're like, this is 1990s Undertaker, you know. So, but yeah, Myers would be cool. Avengers wise, I mean, what is it? That girl in the video today when I was doing the shoulder press, she said that I looked like the Winter Soldier, like Bucky. So I think that would be pretty cool. Yeah, I'm not.
That would be.
Yeah, I'm not as like tight knit to be Captain America as much as I would want to be.
That would be cool though, even if you use some of these just as like gear inspiration.
Yeah,
new gear inspiration.
Yeah, totally. I mean, right off the bat, like I was thinking about it, but then I'm like, me and like 200 other guys are probably gonna do it. I'd be like, oh, it'd be so cool to get like Wolverine, like yellow and blue gear, you know. And then it took like 30 seconds, and I was like, yeah, I bet you like 200 other pairs of that is getting made right now. So
yeah,
you got to be ahead or different, you know. It's you know, it's nature of the beast. So.
And something that we always like to wrap up the show with. Where can the people see you next who are watching, and where can they find you on social media? So
the next couple of shows that we got coming off, I actually finally have a weekend off. I was supposed to work for Dynasty Wrestling this Saturday, but it seems like it's going to be a fair show, and it's up in northern New York, so I'm not sure if that's going to happen. But we do have the next Battlefield pro wrestling show out in Pennsylvania. I believe that's on September 6th. We have the next Wrestle Pro Shotgun Thursday night. That's the first Thursday of every month. So that next one is going to be September 5th. And then we also have Fight Factory's next big show, which is going to be out in Staten Island. That's called Knuckle Brawl. That's going to be on September 21st. And then I do believe there's a Rebel Spirit Pro show September 22nd on that Sunday.
Yes.
That I have marked down too. And then, of course, the big Wrestle Pro like Return to Rawway show with Jinder Mahal on it. That's going to be September 28th on a Saturday in Rawway, New Jersey. So September's looking stacked. The end of August gets kind of quiet because everybody's away on vacation. So just more time to stay ready. But those are the big ones coming up for September. And then you can follow me on Instagram at Stevie G, 2 Y's, STEVEYYG. That's for all your good Jersey muscle jock bodybuilding typical stuff. If you want to follow the Dark Guy, Dark STG, you can do that on Instagram too. Dark_S_T_G. Sorry, somebody already took the STG, so I had also same thing on Twitter or X. YouTube as well. I'll get my full matches posted on YouTube because you know me, I'm a film freak, so all my matches got to be posted up there with promos and everything. You could that's called STG Studios. That's the YouTube channel. And yeah, I mean, I'll keep everybody updated on those pages. Instagram's my favorite app, so that's the best way to kind of check all the updates. And then I got to plug SNS Horror Show, because it's August, so it's officially spooky season for me. The other Steve started in July. That's too damn early, even though but we keep all the reviews of the new movies, what's coming out, good, merchandise, spooky stuff to wear and what's hip. So that's SNS Horror Show. That's on Instagram too. So make sure you go give that a follow too. And yeah, there's a lot. So just, if you can pick one, guys, I appreciate it. I always appreciate the follow and the support. So
well, when you're not busy building Stonehenge, Steve, you are a very busy guy.
Or Leatherface or anything else that you guys are unboxing. And
Stonehenge already took like 500 years just to lift one rock up. So I think we're good with that. So.
Well, you guys definitely keep up a lot of the high energy up on the horror movie stuff, and it's a lot of fun. You guys come at it from a different angle. It's well produced, it's well edited, and I do appreciate that because it makes it very entertaining. And you're just doing awesome stuff in the ring and keeping busy as well too. So that's always great to see.
Thank you, Tony. Appreciate it,
man. Julie, what cool stuff you got coming up?
I have a number of things. As Steve had mentioned, I will be making my return to Rebel Spirit Pro in the fall as well. We have a couple of shows coming up. We have a show in Weymouth, Massachusetts on September 15th. And we will also be at the Weymouth Food Truck Fair that Friday. If anybody is in the area and wants to come and check us out, stop by, see what we're all about. We will also have another show in Marlborough, Massachusetts on Sunday, September 22nd. I am also making my interviewing debut for Coastal Championship Wrestling down in Kissimmee this fall, so you'll be able to find me there. I have a couple of other things in the works that I'm not quite prepared to share yet. Some other places where I may be popping up, so I will be sharing that on my Instagram as it happens. And that being said, I am the most active on Instagram, and you can follow me at The Crown Jewels. Crown is with an E at the end. It's the old English spelling. That's just how we roll here. So Tony, thank you so much again for having me. And Steve, thank you so much for coming on the show. I was personally so excited to interview you just because, as we have discovered this past hour and a half, you just have so many layers of personality to talk about. So we really appreciate you taking the time. And Tony, I will send it back to you.
Yeah, I was going to say, and thank you, Julie, for, bringing up Steve as a guest. Steve, you were an awesome guest. You had so much cool stuff to talk about. I feel like, again, we could probably go on for hours and hours if we really wanted to. But yeah, Julie always comes to me with some great guest ideas. And Steve, it was definitely a pleasure to talk to you. I love talking aliens. I love talking spooky. I love talking wrestling. And even though I've never been a bodybuilder, I still find it very fascinating, the trials and tribulations that you guys and gals go through to create those impressive physiques. That's for sure.
Thank you. I know. Well, thank you for giving me the place to do it because I really never shut up. So you can see I go and go. And we get all different genres here. So thank you guys. It was honestly, I don't do as many podcasts, but it was really well done, well run, easy access. So hope it gets out there and, we get more people and I could be on again someday.
Oh, 100%. We definitely have a lot more, I think, to deep dive in at a later date for sure. As for us here on Tone In Entertainment, we will be back at CCW in Miami for the final bash at the Brew at the Unbranded Brewing Company. It's one of the most rowdy, it's one of the most craziest shows. Planning a little special video for that specific night too. So
tell my buddy QT Marshall I said hello.
He will be there defending his championship in an open challenge that night too. So we don't even know who he's wrestling, and we definitely got some cool stuff lined up. Julie and I are also cooking up some more ideas for the future as well too. I just don't have a lot of set dates right now for future podcasts. We have guests in the works, but we'll be announcing them on Instagram at Toned In Entertainment on Instagram. We never stop. We're always running full force. It's just making the schedules work for everybody's time, but there's definitely some more themed podcasts and more interviews coming in the future. So again, Steve and Julie, thank you so much for joining me here tonight. And guys, also, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that red subscribe button so you can stay tuned in here to Toned In Entertainment for future videos.
Subscribe to the channel. Do it. Go now. Do it now.